So for some people, this is going to be a repeat of some things they've already heard, but other people have said, I don't mind hearing you repeat some of these things. But this channel doubled. What you're seeing here is when I Google Missionary Man, you can see that up top. I've entered Missionary Man, and this is the results that come up. And here's Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart, I think his name is. And you can see the difference between their eyes. So when I talk about the vertical slit pupils of Annie Lennox on Missionary Man, I know most people hear that and think, oh yeah, vertical slit pupils, there was a digital glitch in a video and it pixelated and you're like, oh, there was the shift, there's her reptilian eyes. So many people have played that shit out that it's not taken seriously anymore. But in this is their album cover. And this was put out before pictures were even taken digitally. This was put out before it was a meme on social media regarding reptilians. These truly are vertical slit pupils. Not a digital glitch in a video, this is a still frame on the album cover. And if you watch the video Missionary Man, there's a lot of the serpent brotherhood symbolism. This is an image of Jim Morrison from a music video where they put together a collage of pictures. It's the music video, The End. And you'll notice the snake on the bridge of his glasses, and he called himself the Lizard King. That's what Jim Morrison called himself, the Lizard King. I'm going to show you the butterflies that you might not notice if I didn't point them out. There's one on the top left, one on the top right in his hair, and one down here. This one's more obvious. There's also this pinwheel in his glasses that I'm not certain of the meaning, so we'll just kind of leave that alone for now. That may be subject of discussion for another time, but you can see the serpent on the bridge of his glasses. He calls himself the Lizard King. These images are from a version of The End that I'll include the link in the description, where they give the lyrics, they put the lyrics on screen, and Jim says, ride the snake, and he calls himself the Lizard King, and he has a snake on the bridge of his glasses. What do you think he's meaning? We're going to get to this group of people that embed these messages within the music for you and I to hear. Some messages are more blatant and others are a little more elusive. I think this was like Jim Morrison's Guru in the Jungle when he went on one of his vision quests. And at the end, it hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. Do you think this is an offer? Instructions? Directives? Here we're going to watch just a small segment of one of these videos. We have part 1, part 2, and part 3 of a good Christian kills his kids to save the world from the serpent seed of Cain.
He was enlightened by QAnon and Illuminati.
Oh, let's rewind it. Big shout out to Aphrodite Rose Starfire for bringing this to my attention, where one of these good Christians killed his kid
to save the world from that serpent seed race. And I'll have a tongue lashing for the rest of you that did not bring this to my attention, who probably engaged in cognitive dissonance, that saw this is exactly what I've been saying, that the parable of the beam and the mote implores you not to commit genocide based on pupil shape. With all your condemnation prior to investigation and all of your indoctrination about Green Man bad, this guy is just more sincere and pious and dedicated to the cause with a greater faith than the rest of you.
With the stunning new revelations in this case. Leanne.
David, the details in that FBI affidavit are shocking and absolutely heartbreaking. Matthew Coleman telling investigators his kids were going to grow into monsters and he had to kill them. So young and innocent, Their lives brutally cut short by their own father. Matthew Coleman confessing to shooting his 2-year-old son and 10-month-old daughter in the heart with his spear fishing gun because, quote, he was saving the world from monsters. The 40-year-old making his first appearance in federal court today after being arrested for the heinous murders of his kids in Mexico. Coleman, who along with his wife Abby, owns the popular Love Water Surf School in Santa Barbara. According to the criminal complaint, the 40-year-old telling investigators he was enlightened by QAnon and Illuminati conspiracy theories, and that his wife possessed serpent DNA and had passed it on to his children. To shooting his 2-year-old son and 10-month-old daughter in the heart with his spear fishing gun because, quote, he was saving the world from monsters. The 40-year-old making his first appearance in federal court today after being arrested for the heinous murders of his kids in Mexico. Coleman, who along with his wife Abby, owns the popular Love Water Surf School in Santa Barbara. According to the criminal complaint, the 40-year-old telling investigators he was enlightened by QAnon and Illuminati conspiracy theories, and that his wife possessed serpent DNA and had passed it on to his children. The 40-year-old telling investigators he was enlightened by QAnon and Illuminati conspiracy theories, and that his wife possessed serpent DNA
And
My point there is showing that some people take this seriously. It's not just a pop culture phenomenon of glitches and lens flares and pixelations. And I've told you before that there's going to be a coming witch hunt that is religion multiplied by the war on terror, multiplied by the C-19 operation, multiplied by racism. And if you show any compassion, we offer no aid and comfort to the enemy. You're with us, or you're with the terrorists, they said during the war on terror, during that witch hunt, and during the religious witch hunts. If you show any compassion for those who have been deemed a witch, then you yourself are a witch. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The friend of my enemy is my enemy. It's real straightforward, simple stuff. In the song Guilty Filthy Soul by awolnation, one of the choruses sings, we're waiting on a bloodline. You can find some free time. Look at who you're hating. Now we're celebrating. She been blacking in my name. Her army never came. It's water under the bridge. Be careful who you tell. We're waiting on a bloodline. So if you watch the video by Eurythmics, Missionary Man, you'll clearly see all this serpent brotherhood symbolism. It's all about the Garden of Eden, where they throw the apple into the mix. You got the black and white checkerboard floors. If you've got eyes to see symbolism, you'll be able to read a lot of it in the Missionary Man music video. And some of these muse messages that I've decoded are blatant and explicit, more like directives and instructions with a beat and a rhythm, like the one from Walking on the Sun that says, so don't delay, act now, supplies are running out, allow if you're still alive, 6 to 8 years to arrive, and if you follow there may be a tomorrow, but if the offer's shunned, you might as well be walking on the sun. And that seems to make more sense considering the recent people that have put out videos showing the sun engulfing the earth. This is from a Mr. MBB333 video that he put out recently. You can see his face down there in the bottom right. Someone took this video or photograph on the right of the sun appearing to emit plasma filaments, and he compares it to Medusa on the left. That is directly from the J Dreamer's cosmology of the plasma apocalypse, that this is what the snakes on Medusa's head actually are, and this is why people who look directly at her become petrified or turn to stone. And there is a lyric about that by Joni Mitchell in her song Don't Interrupt the Sorrow. You see what's on the album cover there? The snake. Let's read the lyrics. To don't interrupt the sorrow, you darn right. In flames our prophet witches, be polite. A room full of glasses. He says, "Your notch's liberation doll." And he chains me with that serpent to that Ethiopian wall. Anima rising, queen of queens. Wash my guilt of Eden, wash and balance me. Anima rising, uprising in me tonight. She's a vengeful little goddess with an ancient crown to fight. Truth goes up in vapors, steeples lean, winds of change, patriarchs, snug in your Bible Belt dreams. God goes up the chimney like childhood Santa Claus. The good slaves love the good book, a rebel loves a cause. I'm leaving on the 115, you're darn right. Since I was 17, I had no one over me. He says, anima rising, so what? Petrified wood process, tall timber down to rock. Don't interrupt the sorrow, you darn right. He says, we walked on the moon, you be polite. Don't interrupt the sorrow. Don't let up the sorrow, death and birth and death and birth and death and birth. He says, bring that bottle kindly and I'll pad your purse. I've got a head full of quandary and a mighty, mighty, mighty thirst. 17 glasses, Rhine wine, milk of the Madonna, clandestine. Don't let up the sorrow, he lies and he cheats. It takes a heart like Mary's these days when your man gets weak. So I can't really show you the parts of it, but you watch this music video called The Outside by 21 Pilots and you'll see that they are depicting someone who has the dragon spirit in them. And as for 21 Pilots, they have a few other songs where they refer to this group of people who's been dropping these muse messages within the lyrics. Like I said, some of these messages are explicit and blatant, like the one by the one from Walking on the Sun. And some are less explicit and blatant. But in the music, in the song Jumpsuit, also by 21 Pilots, he starts out the video walking up to the camera, looking directly into the camera and says, we've been here the whole time. You were asleep. It's time to wake up. And then he proceeds with the song. Like that wasn't part of the song. That wasn't the first lyric of the song. That was a public service announcement that we're going to handle before we do the song. And then he moves on with the song Jumpsuit. Watch the beginning of that video. He tells you this while standing on top of a burning car. Looking directly into the camera, we've been here the whole time. You were asleep. It's time to wake up. My question is, who is this we that he's talking about? And he references a similar group of people another time in the song Heathens. And now they're outside ready to bust. It looks like you might be one of us. Who is this us that he speaks of? Or The Hype, also by 21 Pilots. It's nice to know my kind will be on my side. I don't believe the hype. And you know you're a terrible sight. But you'll be just fine. Just don't believe the hype. What is this? Who is this people he's talking about? That my kind will be on my side. What kind is this? That you might be one of us in the song Heathens? One of who? Who is it that he says in the beginning of the song Jumpsuit, we've been here the whole time. You were asleep. It's time to wake up. Who is this we that he's speaking of? It is this group of people that have been embedding these messages within the music, some of which are explicit and blatant, like walking straight up to the camera and saying, we've been here the whole time. You were asleep. It's time to wake up. That's not a subtle innuendo. Some of these messages are implicit or implied. Some of them are explicit, blatant and glaringly obvious and in your face. Some of them are directives and instructions just with a beat and a rhythm put to it, like Walking on the Sun. I also like me some awolnation and some Imagine Dragons, but awolnation in the song Sail says, maybe I'm a different breed, maybe I'm not listening. This is how an angel cries. This is how I show my love. Once you understand and accept and acknowledge that these messages are embedded within the music, the question then becomes, who is it placing them there? And it doesn't, some people are way beyond acknowledging and accepting that these messages are embedded within the music. It's no longer even a question or a possibility. It's an absolute certainty. Then the question is, who are the people placing these messages within the music, and who are they for? And the answer is for those who will wake up and receive the message when the time comes. Until then, these messages are embedded within the music, and most people pass it off as, oh, it's just music. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just weird and artistic and creative. And eventually there comes a generation that goes, no, there's something in there, and it's a message. It's like a picture within the picture, and that generation is who these messages are for, those who will receive it with the eyes to see and the ears to hear. All of those who passed it along in this format of music, that was just a format, like a platform, like a social media platform. Music was a platform, a container, and a vessel to put this message within, and then people would pass it along from one to another. And even though these songs would reach the number one on the top 10 charts and be played on the radio all the time, everywhere, 99.99999% of people would not hear the message, even if it's blatant, like, don't delay, act now, supplies are running out. Allow, if you're still alive, 6 to 8 years to arrive. And if you follow, there may be a tomorrow, but if the offer is shunned, you might as well be walking on the sun. Just like Mr. MB3 here went full on J Dreamer's plasma apocalypse by referencing the sun and these plasma filaments, comparing them to Medusa in the thumbnail of one of his videos, and within the video itself. Marfugal News. Why do they need this? Antarctica, the center of WW3. That's exactly what J Dreamer says right before the plasma apocalypse. All these people start the great race toward that North Pole, and like before the starting gun, they all trying to get an inch ahead, knowing that it's going to be a race to that North Pole, and they're all on their way right now. That's what Marfugal News showed in his video yesterday, the day before. This is the Marfugal News thumbnail from 2 days ago, and it says Carrington level event. You can see the reason why it says you might as well be walking on the sun. And Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, this isn't something in the Book of Mormon, but in his private journals and discourse that were recorded, says that the earth, I call it the Celestializer CM2K, the Celestializer Master 2000. That's a joke I made a long time ago. It's not funny anymore. The earth will become celestialized and give off light, just like the sun, as each planet does in due course of its process. That means you might as well be walking on the sun lyric. It comports with what was in the Journal of Discourses written by Joseph Smith, or by his, secretary, his right-hand man, that would write down the notes of the meetings that they would have. That the earth would become celestialized is the word he used for it. And that word, in the context of the meaning that he describes, means the earth will give off light and become just like the sun. In some of those same journals and discourses, Joseph Smith says that there are beings who live on the sun as well as beings who live on the moon that are 6 feet tall, uniform in height, and dress like Quakers, if you want to look into that. My point here is, these messages, one day the sun will leave us all behind, unexplainable sightings in the sky, and I hate to be the one to ruin the night. Right before your eyes, I say you kill your heroes and fly, baby don't cry, and don't you worry 'cause everybody will die. And every day you just go, go, baby, don't go. And don't you worry, we love you more than you know. These messages were left in that music for the people of this age, of this generation. And we're leaving all the haters behind before the sun decides to hide. I know you think I may be out of line. I'm scared to love what we love most. Another AWOLnation song, that's Wake Up and Kill Your Heroes. As I'm going through, that's the Marfugal news from 2 days ago. Look what we have here, the truth about the 2025 internet apocalypse. That thumbnail image behind you doesn't look like an internet apocalypse. That looks just like the rest of the message that's been embedded within this music. This is a picture that I took on the t-shirt of the guy in front of me. You'll see at the bottom it says, after the decay, they will reclaim and order will be restored. You'll see what this is here in just a second when it pans up. Utopian visions. That's the back of a guy who is wearing this t-shirt in front of me in line, and I take a snapshot. You can see his arm and his elbow on the left side of the picture, showing that this is the back of his t-shirt. And when I ask him about it, he's like, oh, it was just some college fraternity thing. I don't really remember, no. Utopian visions. After the decay, they will reclaim and order will be restored. Is more than just a fraternity thing that I don't really remember about. My point here is, you can judge me by my fruits, and accordingly, if I was to tell you, oh yeah, I've been representing shilling for the Freemasons, you might say, okay, well I thought those guys were all evil, but I've seen that the qualities of character that you've demonstrated are sorely lacking everywhere else in the world, and that the world would be a much better place if people were smart enough to see it and courageous enough to say it regarding the plasma fire alone. And showing me that they can't see it and it's blatantly obvious all around them has revealed to me a very, very problematic quality of character in the people around us. So maybe I'll give those guys a fresh slate and a clean start in my mind and judge them by their principles, not their personality, their substance, not their style, their ideals, not their idols, and their function, not their form. And you might be willing to reconsider all the preconceived ideas you might have had about this secret society that you know absolutely nothing about. But if I was to tell you I was representing reptilians, you might have a little bit more difficult time saying, okay, maybe I shouldn't judge them until I do, or maybe I should judge them by their fruits, and the fruits of your labor, Jeff, have shown me qualities of character that are sorely lacking in everyone else in this world, and the world would be a much better place. So if that's who you're representing in your ideals and your principles and your substance and your function in these presentations that you've revealed to me that showed me something about the world and the people in it that I just can't forget and get over. I can't get over the fact that the trees are all burning on the inside and none of the people around me can see it. And you've demonstrated qualities of character, smart enough to see it, courageous enough to say it, in the face of opposition of the groupthink of the soft-minded people who are going to take a hardline stance on things they don't understand and string you up at the next witch burning because you've declared yourself a witch by showing them things that they can't see. Oh, well, if one guy can see something that no one else can see, that means he's crazy, right? Yeah, just ask everyone else who can't see it. They'll all agree and tell you, yep, that guy's crazy. In the movie Childhood's End, they have a ambassador, so to speak, who is a representative, a go-between between the new aliens that have arrived and circled around in the sky for a few years to the point where everyone knows they're up there. They've seen enough of them. Everyone now knows after a few years of them circling around in the sky that they're there, and they use a regular blue-collar guy as an interface, as a go-between, as a representative, like an ambassador, to communicate with the general public on behalf of these newcomers, these new arrivals. This is the movie Childhood's End. And after a while, the people get restless. They're like, just show yourselves. And he tells them, you need to just show yourselves. People are starting to think the worst and make assumptions. And you guys should just reveal yourselves instead of hiding behind me as your representative. And when they do, they come out looking exactly like what the public has been programmed to see as the embodiment of evil. The devil with the red skin and the horns and the pitchfork and the hooves. And so it may be. And those people are unwilling or unable to develop any kind of a relationship and get over the brainwashing and the programming and the mind control they've been placed under in preparation for this interaction. In the real world, that's how it would be. In the TV series, in the movie, it's a different story. But in our world, people's programming runs deep enough. They are soft-minded people who are going to take a hardline stance on things they don't understand and join the witch hunt with their fellow good Christians that are willing to kill their own kids, their 6-month-old, and their 2-year-old, to save the world from monsters, because my wife infected my kid with the serpent seed DNA and I was just saving the world. You think I'm joking? It's already happening. This is not hyperbolic rhetoric that I'm saying here to be sensational. I'm telling you, this witch hunt is here. And when it comes, you'll each have a choice to make. Join all your fellow good Christians, or join us witches. Join this Antichrist, because that's what they'll call me, and this is not the first time that I have said that. I said it April 19th, 2019, when I left on this vision quest. This is a small clip from a J Dreamer's Truth in Movies, number 107, where he's decoding Spaceballs, but these images we're looking at are from the Apotheosis of Washington, painted on the United States Capitol building on the inside of their dome.
You can see these guys over here.
Now, over here we've got Hephaestus, also known as Vulcan, right? He's like the god of creating things. These gods are all mentioned in the book of Enoch when these fallen angels came down and taught men. I mean, this guy's not an actual human. He's not an actual real person. He's electromagnetic phenomenon that touches the minds and the brains of people, the actual physical brains, and opens up your neural pathways to allow you to use 100% of your brain. And then all of a sudden people are like figuring things out rather quickly. So,
which may be what is being depicted in the iPet Goat 2 image, where the dragon on the wall is licking the brain that's being struck by lightning.
So people are inventing things, weapons, unfortunately, right? And this is why this particular fallen angel was ridiculed for teaching mankind, the use of weapons and forging steel to hurt others and stuff. This one, Ceres.
So that would make him the equivalent of Enki, who gave us the neocortex, on top of the reptilian brain, and then the mammalian brain. We have the neocortex, which gave us the ability to use tools and language. And Enlil didn't like that. He liked to treat the humans as cattle. And now that they've got the ability to use tools and language, soon they will develop to a point where they are unmanageable, like cattle. That's also the equivalent of the serpent in the garden. But I think this is something I've spoken about many a times, the left brain and the right brain, when they start to work in tandem. And there's even like music out there called hemisync, where it syncs up the hemispheres, the right and left hemisphere of your brain. But when I had my Great Awakening around April 19th, 2019, it was like my brain was working in ways that it never had, and I was able to access information from places that I was never able to access it from before. Let's watch this explanation of how everyone has two minds within them. Everybody is schizophrenic. They just don't know it. We'll talk more about this after we put this into context.
Your brain is two brains, two hemispheres, each doing half the work of being you. Half your vision goes to each and half your movement directed by each. Right controls left and left controls right. Your two brains coordinate through a wire of nerves, but this wire can be cut and was, for a time, used as an epilepsy treatment. After the cut, people seemed the same, though their brain was split in twain. Except some post-split patients describe that while selecting their morning outfit with right hand, left might come along to disagree. Actually, left hand might quite often disagree, which these split brain patients found frustrating. What's happening? To investigate, remember, right brain sees and controls one half, while left brain controls and sees the other. But only left brain can speak. Hello. Because that's where the speech center is located. Right brain without this is mute. In normal brains, this doesn't matter because each half communicates across the wire with the other. But split brains can't, and thus you can show just the right brain a word, ask the person, "What did you see?" and you'll hear nothing. Because left speaking brain saw nothing. Meanwhile, right brain will use its hand to pick the object out of a pile hidden from left brain. This is deeply creepy. Ask, why are you holding the object, and speaking left brain will make up a plausible sounding but totally wrong reason. I always wanted to learn how to solve one of these. Left brain isn't lying, it's just doing what brains do, creating a story that explains its past actions to its current self. A behavior which does rather cast doubt onto the notion of free will, but that's a story for another time. Creating reasons for why it does things is just something left brains do. It happens in normal, healthy humans all the time, and if you think about it closely, you know you've done this. Back to experiments. Give right brain an object, ask the person what's in your hand, and they won't be able to say. I'm not holding anything. And when asked to draw, a split brain can draw two separate objects simultaneously with each hand in a way unsplit brains find challenging. These experiments on split brain patients are deeply unsettling because they really point in the direction of a mute, separate intelligence, something living in the skull. You can even ask questions of a split brain and get disagreement on the answer. So if your brain is split, who is the you in this situation? From the outside, it's tempting to think of the part of the brain that's speaking as the person, but something is hearing and answering questions. And though right brain can't speak, it does understand faces, which left brain can't. If this is you, you don't know who your friends and family are in a crowd. This act of cutting exposes two minds in one head, and the talking mind doesn't know there's someone else in the house. The left brain can describe the situation it's in, but nonetheless will constantly be surprised by right brain's actions and explain them away. There's a question to be asked here. Why, after separation, does right brain not totally freak out, but instead plays along helpfully, answering questions and listening to left brain's dumb stories about what's happening? It's the best pony? I don't know. Speculation time, but one answer is the cutting doesn't make right brain a separate intelligence, consciousness, person, but rather it has always been. In normal people, perhaps right brain grows up as a companion without a choice, feeling at first somewhat equal partners, but then as speech develops that it can't participate in, that increasingly becomes the central point of life, it resigns to mutely coordinate with left brain. At this moment in your normal head, there are two of you watching this video, one having a mind equals blown moment and the other mentally rolling its eye at the obviousness of it all. In split brains, right doesn't freak out because not a whole lot has really changed. You might not agree and may be arguing right now why it can't be possible, exactly as we would expect talking left brain to do. Speculation aside, split brain patients show at the very least that in the mind there is a separate something that can hear and understand and respond given the right circumstances. Your brain isn't entirely yours. Who is you? You is two. But we can go deeper.
You are many. The pile of meat that is your body is made up of trillions of tiny individuals that have a life of their own. So at which point do the many become one? What makes lots of tiny things you? Click here to go to our channel and watch the next part.
So for now, we'll be forgetting about that very last segment about how your body's made up of trillions of cells, etc., and just focusing upon this. The truth of why did you do that, for most people, most often, is because of a feeling and an impulse. The one reason for everything everyone has ever done or ever will do is because they believe it will make them feel better. And thus, why did you do that? Because I felt like it is the honest answer. But the left brain will come up with a logical, rational explanation for these things that are actually done through impulse, an emotional impulse. And when you don't know yourself very well, it's like one of you is hiding behind the curtain and the other one is out on stage and thinks it's the only one in the house. So the one from behind the curtain, if it's taken over by an entity like you're spiritually possessed, by something that gives you impulses and feelings to act out, and you don't even know that that something else is motivating you to make decisions and take actions from this hidden place that you're totally unaware of. It wants to keep you unaware of it. That way it can stay behind the curtain concealed and continue pulling your strings in ways that you're not even aware of. Emotion is associated with the right brain. Intuition, spirituality, creativity, all of the feminine things. Another way to put this instead of right brain, left brain is heart and mind. The mind is equivalent to the left brain, analytical, all about facts and figures and numbers and words. The right brain is associated with the heart, emotion, intuition, inspiration. So when you're being motivated by a feeling, right brain, heart, your left brain takes credit for it and says, oh no, I did that, and it tries to fill in a logical, rational, reasonable explanation of why you did that, when the truth is you did it because you felt like it, you did it because you had an impulse, and you did it because you believed it would make you feel better. Come to know yourself in these ways, and you'll find a whole new world. Otherwise, there is someone behind the curtain pulling your strings that you're not even aware of. And unless and until you get in touch with your emotions, right brain, heart, you will be driven and motivated and given impulses that drive you and control you. And then your left brain will come up with ways to explain about how, oh no, I meant to do that. I chose to do that. I thought about it and did it because of my logical, rational, reasonable line of thinking that caused me to do that and take that action and make that decision. When you don't even know about this other half of you, this other operating system within inside of you, it's very easy for that operating system to get hijacked by spiritual parasites that I've spoken of before, by, it's like a living meme, an egregore, a tulpa, a thought form that seeks to spread from one person to another, but it actually operates in your feeling system, not your thought system. In your heart, not your mind. In your right brain, not your left brain. And when the two parts of you come together, you no longer have someone controlling you from behind the curtain that you're completely unaware of their existence, or that that's where your true motivations come from, and that's what's actually guiding your decision making and your actions and behavior. You become familiar with and acquainted with the other half of who you are. Until then, the left brain takes credit for everything that you think you're doing, and the right brain is actually hijacked by emotional impulses and spiritually driven. Your heart is hardened. Your right brain, when you don't even take it into account and recognize that it's influencing your behaviors and your actions and your decisions, you have no self-control because you have no self-awareness. If you are not aware of that other half of yourself, let's call it your heart, It's easier to conceive of than right brain, left brain. It's heart and mind. And you live in a world between mind and heart. You live in a cell between mind and heart. That's a song by Enigma. And when you tap into the right brain that's behind the curtain, and suddenly it develops an ability to speak, just like left brain, and you become familiarized with it, then you hear the music and you see the symbolism, and you have a whole new language available to you, and the whole world opens up to you. You were only operating in half of the world. The other half becomes available to you when you become familiar with and acquainted with and in touch with your other half. In the movie White Men Can't Jump, Wesley Snipes says to Woody Harrelson, because Woody Harrelson says, "Oh yeah, I listen to Jimi Hendrix." And he says, "That's the problem. Y'all listen, but y'all can't hear Jimmy." Because music is through the right brain of creativity. And that is where you actually tap into the substance of the music. If you're only listening to it with your left brain, it just sounds like noises that go to a beat and a rhythm. But once you're tapped into the other half of who you are, you can hear Jimmy. And you hear different layers of meaning and messages within that music that you cannot hear when you're just tapped into your left brain. Like, remove the beam from your own eye, and only then will you be able to see clearly to remove the mote from your brother's. Beam on the left, moat on the right. A moat is a circle of water that surrounds a castle, so it looks like a circle inside of a circle. And what you see on the left there looks like a beam compared to the eyes on the right, which resemble a moat. Now, if you Google what the parable of the beam and the moat images, it shows you a lot of different images, a lot of repeats of the same one, but a bunch of different images of a guy with a 4x4 sticking out of his face. And if Jesus spoke in such parables that no one could relate to because no one has ever had anything like that, then no one would remember a thing that he said. If the parables that he spoke in of such things that no one could relate to because no one's ever had a beam in their eye in the way that is being depicted in these murals and sculptures and paintings. No one has ever had that type of a beam in their eye. So maybe he was speaking of something that people had experienced and do have a context within which they can conceive of such a parable, probably the most famous one of all the parables, and no one calls it the beam and the mote. They say remove the stick, the twig, the dust, the speck. No, it's a beam and a mote. And you never hear anyone say that. They talk about remove the twig from your own eye, the log, the speck, the dust, the dirt. But maybe this is what is being referenced in that parable. Maybe this is something that people actually have experienced and do have experience with, and they can relate to, that has been removed from our history, from our knowledge of the world. Because no one ever had a 4x4 sticking out of their face. But it does appear that some people have had this type of a beam in their eye. Are you willing to learn the truth about yourself without fear of what you might discover? Because that fear will prevent you from learning that truth. This is the song by awolnation. It's got two titles, Bad Wolf and Hollow Moon. Hollow Moon is technically the title of the song, but a lot of people refer to it as the Bad Wolf song because the main chorus is, "I'm gonna make a deal with the bad wolf so the bad wolf don't bite no more," referencing a Native American tale that there are two wolves inside every person, and you must choose which to feed. Are you going to feed the good wolf or feed the bad wolf? It's the Native American version of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder. And it shows these people having a shadow move from one side of their face to the other. This first guy right here has the shadow move from the left to the right. This guy has the shadow move from the right to the left. The lyrics start out saying, "I've been running from it all my lifetime. There's nothing wrong with you. I'm searching for my right mind." And it gets to a point where you see these dancers on the left facing off with the dancers on the right. The left and the right brain. The good wolf and the bad wolf. I'ma make a deal with the bad wolf so the bad wolf don't bite no more. Without trying to explain this, you'll just have to watch it yourself. I can't afford to maybe get a copyright strike by showing too much. But these two sets of dancers facing off against one another, they start dancing together, but it's very chaotic, and there is no rhyme or rhythm or pattern. And then they all synchronize up. It's like when the two sides of the two hemispheres come together. It starts out with a few synapses firing here and there, and when they start to work together and they both start working, it is a bit chaotic, and then they synchronize, and then you no longer live in a cell between mind and heart. You've tapped into both. And motherfucker, I'll be back from the dead soon. I'll be watching from the center of the hollow moon. That's one of the lyrics. I'll leave the rest up to you, because this isn't the kind of thing that can be conveyed through words to your left brain. It's something you have to tap into. No one can give you this type of experiential knowing through their conceptual understanding of it. You have to have the experience yourself to even begin to have an understanding that this is really a thing. Vanessa VA calls this retrocausal language, because she too has tapped into a lot of the music and the references that her and I have gotten out of these. One of them was regarding sail and sailing and all the water references, but I'll just leave it at that. But the point here is, I'm gonna make a deal with the bad wolf so the bad wolf don't bite no more. It means bringing those two wolves together rather than having them at odds and choosing one over the other. You can use the heart and the mind. And the lazy brats and the copycats are the last thing I want to see. For me, that's a lyric referencing people that follow religion. Lazy brats and copycats. When motherfucker, I'll be back from the dead soon, and I'll be watching from the center of the hollow moon. And when I return, the lazy brats and the copycats are the last thing I want to see. My enemy is a friend of mine in a friendly place to be seen. It's referring to a part of yourself that you got to make a deal with the bad wolf. My enemy is a friend of mine in a friendly place to be seen. And I'm going to make a deal with the bad wolf so the bad wolf don't bite no more. This is referencing bringing two parts of yourself together in order to allow them to both work. Until then, they're at odds with each other, and you don't even know the other half exists. My dad said growing up that anytime there's a conflict between your heart and your mind, always go with the mind. The heartache will dissipate over time, and those feelings will disappear, and you'll always be better off if you prioritize your mind and use your mind. And he's an electronics engineer, and he proudly refers to himself as an engineer brain, so I guarantee he can't hear Jimmy. And music is just a bunch of words and noises to a rhythm and a beat for him. And that is why this type of messages can be contained within the music that's broadcast to everyone, but no one picks up on the messages because they're locked into their left brain. But those who tap into their heart, their right brain, intuition, emotion, and all of those qualities of character that are associated with the feminine, those people pick up on these messages. The rest are completely oblivious, even when they're as blatant and straightforward as the one from Walking on the Sun or Jumpsuit. We've been here the whole time. You were asleep. It's time to wake up.